Right, yeah. I'm not
Are we
really
ready
sure,
to
but
start? It's 9 o'clock.
I don't think we're completely done.
Yeah, I think we're ready.
I don't know. We're not ready.
No public today. Okay, let's begin. Recommendations of the Pennington Planning County Commission on items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting on September 20th, 2019 at 10:30 a.m. The Planning Commission uses speaker request forms, which are available here in the chambers by the door. So we have no public today. There's also copies of the agenda for anyone who wants to follow along. For roll call, we have everyone, though Rich Marsh is not here today. Item 1, approval of the August 26, 2019 minutes.
I so move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, say no. Motion carries. Approval of today's agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. All right, agenda is approved. Consent agenda, PJ.
BJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. Good morning, Commissioners. The consent agenda. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of the Planning Commission are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item 3, conditional use permit review 1122 for Jeff Sattergasky to review a home occupation, detailing and refurbishing of small engine equipment and motorcycles in the detached garage in a suburban residential district. Staff recommends to end conditional use permit 1122 with the applicant's concurrence as is no longer needed. Item 4, conditional use permit review 1523 for Perry and Gretchen Strombeck to review a caretaker's residence on the subject property in a low-density residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1523 with 6 conditions. Item 5, conditional use permit review 1633 for Clinton Newley to review a single-wide mobile home to be used as a permanent single-family residence on the subject property in a suburban residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1633 with 8 conditions. Item 6, conditional use permit review 1722 for Pamela Phillips to review a single-wide mobile home to be used as a permanent single-family residence on the subject property in a suburban residential district. Staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit 1722 to the November 25th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting with the applicant's concurrence. Item 7, conditional use permit review 1805 for Harry and Rosina Hilgeman. Brett Hilgeman is the agent to review a caretaker's residence on the subject property in a suburban residential district. Staff recommends to end conditional use permit 1805 with the applicant's concurrence. Item 8, conditional use permit review 1843 for Border States Paving to review a temporary asphalt batch plant and contractor storage yard on the subject property in a general agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1843 with 14 conditions. Item 9, Major Plan Unit Development Amendment Review 1701 for Karen Moore to review an existing plan unit development to allow for a specialty recreational resort for bed and breakfast and events such as weddings, receptions, company picnics, family reunions, bridal and baby showers, and other types of small gatherings similar in nature, and additional RV sites. Staff recommends approval of the extension of Major Plan Unit Development Amendment 1701 with 40 conditions. Item 10, Minor Plan Unit Development Amendment 1705 for Tanner Colburn to review the existing Sunset Ranch Plan Unit Development to reduce the setback from 25 feet to 12 feet along the western property line. Staff recommends to continue the review of Minor Plan Unit Development Amendment 1705 to no later than the October 14, 2019 Planning Commission meeting with 3 conditions.
Are there any items staff would like to remove from the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Any that the commission would like to remove?
Nope.
Seeing none, that gives us items 3 through 10 on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve consent items 3 through 10.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good morning, Cassie Bolstead. Item 11 is the only item on your regular agenda today. Item 11 is layout plat 1926. This is a request to create lots A and B of Knotty Pine subdivision. The applicant is William and McKaylee Parsons. Some of you might recognize this property as it exists today. It's zoned limited agriculture district, consists of 11.64 acres. Access is off of Knotty Pine Lane. Currently contains a single-family residence, a detached garage, and an on-site wastewater treatment system. There is no special flood hazard area on this property. What they are requesting to do is to subdivide this property into two. Lot A would be approximately 8.639 acres and would contain the existing structures on the property. Lot B would be 3 acres and is vacant of any structures, and according to the applicant, this lot will be sold to the neighboring property owner to the south. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process. Nothing of significant concern came back. This property, the reason some of you might recognize it, they tried to subdivide this property in 2017. In January of 2017, they got approval of a layout plat to create 3 lots instead of 2 for this. Ultimately, they did end up stopping that process after they had a lot size variance that was denied by the Board of Commissioners. And some concerns came up from the neighboring property owners. At that time, like I said, they wanted to subdivide it into 3 lots that could each be sold and developed separately. Now the applicant is wanting to keep Lot A, but Lot B will be sold to the property owner to the south for access. That property owner to the south, down here, can't access his property, this side of his property, because there's a pretty large ravine right here. So he wants to have this 3 acres over here so he can access this side of his property. It's my understanding that it won't be developed at this time. It's simply for access. So he did apply for this layout plat on August 7th of this year. Like I said, rather than subdividing it into 3 lots, he's now only requesting to subdivide it into 2. For the purposes of a layout plat, staff finds no significant issues with this request and is recommending approval of layout plat 1926 with 8 conditions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments for staff? Any motions for approval?
I move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now to quick construction permit agenda, item 12.
Good morning, Brittany Molitor, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Item 12 is a construction permit for Pete Lane. It's to review a construction permit to allow mining activities in a general agriculture district. Currently, this property is 40 acres. It does not have any mining activity on it as it stands right now. This has been reviewed every 3 to 5 years since 1999, but they would still like it as be considered for a construction permit application. Just an item of note, that construction permits, we just take public comment on it for the planning director to utilize to make his decision on these. And also, this applicant applied for this construction permit in 1999 under sections 205B17 and 507 of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. At that time, it was prior to 2001, so mining permits were not a part of our ordinance at that time. So mining was permitted use with a construction permit under 205B17. So if there's any questions or comments on this one?
See no questions or comments. We still have nobody in the audience from the public. So I guess we are good. Next item, 13.
Item 13 is a construction permit review 9944 to review a construction permit to allow for mining activities in the general agriculture district for Pete Lean and Sons. This is the actual Black Hawk mine. This is the largest portion of their mining activity. This was applied for in 1999. Again, it was under the 205B17 and 507, so it would just require a construction permit for mining activities. This has been reviewed every 3 to 5 years since 1999. The conditions have remained the same. Actually, staff did a site visit with staff from Pete Lean and drove around out there. A majority of this is getting reclaimed at this time. They're reclaiming a large portion of this. They do have like some piles there that they're going to use to backfill some of the holes and things, but most of this area is getting reclaimed at this time. So if there's any questions?
Any commissioners have any questions? Any items for discussion?
Brittany,
Sure.
when they do these construction permits, is this a matter that has to be sent to neighbors within a certain distance
No.
for public comment? Just, they come in here and you review and,
Correct. In the past, in 1999, when they originally approved or applied for this, this was just an administrative review within the department at that time.
so basically just standard operating procedure?
Correct.
Okay. Did we vote on 12?
We don't vote on
We
these
don't vote.
items.
These are
Okay.
just public.
I have a question.
Sure.
The land to the south of where this mining operation is, in other words, there's property that runs all the way to St. Martin's, that St. Martin's turn. And I noticed it's posted for future development. I assume Pete Lean owns that?
They do, and they have several construction permits. So these are just two of, I believe they have 5 total within our office. So these are just 2 of the 5. Let's see. And these ones, if you can kind of see that area in purple,
Yeah.
that's what encompasses this 9944. And then that area in red is the 9943. And then they have another one, I know off the top of my head is 9929, I think that isn't the other.
Most of these haven't been developed yet.
No,
Yeah.
the major pit is that Black Hawk mine that's in that, where you can see most of the excavation.
I'm just curious about when they will arrive at that point, and the dust will rise even higher in the air. In some ways, I'm sort of sympathetic to people who live in that part of town, but I guess one should know when you go there that gravel and sand operation is going to be there forever, and the dust is going to be there forever too. So, but I was just curious if this didn't indicate any expansion there, but clearly they're going to do that at some point in the future.
To my knowledge, they're going to move south is what
Oh, yeah.
what we were told.
All right, just a question.
And when they do mine, the dust mitigation, that's part of the application, isn't it?
Yes, and when we were out there, it was somewhat of a breezy day, and they were doing dust control. There was water trucks and things out there working when we were out there that day.
Yeah, no, I know they make an effort to do that, and South Dakota does have a lot of that effect. So, yeah.
Any further questions or comments for staff?
None here.
Okay, then we will move to item 14.
Good morning, Cody Sack, Environmental Planner. Item 14 is construction permit review 1710. It's to review a construction permit to strip, excavate, and stockpile material for off-site use. This has been in front of you guys before, about a month ago. They had some violations that needed to be fixed, and they've fixed those now. Also, last time talking with the applicants, they have seeded and mulched. They are done with construction and they have seeded and mulched the site. So now we're just waiting to see if that seed takes. They got to reach 70%. Sorry, excuse me, 70% revegetation for us to close the permit. So staff is recommending that the planning director approve construction permit 1710 with 5 conditions.
Any comments or questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we can move to item 15.
Item 15 is construction permit 1913. It's to bring in fill and grade for a creek crossing. The applicant is James Quinn. This was routed around through the departments, and really the only comments back were to make sure that the applicant talked to the state and the Army Corps of Engineers to get the proper permit, since it is a water crossing, it's crossing a creek. On September 5th, we did receive back from Jeff Breckenridge from the Army Corps of Engineers that the applicant is going through the process to get a 404 permit for the creek crossing. Staff did perform a site visit, and the applicant does have some erosion control up now. There's some openly disturbed area that's under 10,000 square feet, and it's been there for 5 years. Basically, what's going to happen is where you see this, you can see the old creek crossing. He's going to replace it, build it up, and build it over here. So he's basically just moving, and then when he gets that done, he's going to tear out the old creek crossing. So staff is recommending that the planning director approve construction permit 1913 with 13 conditions.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on this item? I still see nobody in the audience, so
I have one question. Cody, what is the body of water here?
Bogus Jim Creek.
Yeah, Bogus Jim Creek.
Oh, okay.
Jim Creek. Yeah, and he's got a little, there's not a, over here, sorry, I didn't put a very good picture up to actually see it. There's a little, like, he's got a little dam there, like a little pond, and he's gonna have to, he told me that he's got a pump, because when he tears that out, he's gonna have to dam that, pump the creek, or pump the water around so it doesn't flow back. So he does have plans to do that. And then I told him with like wattles and stuff that, you know, if it fails, that he's going to have to go to something more, because he has to minimize the amount of sediment that can get into the creek.
Okay, we're just curious.
okay, if there's no further comments, we've reached the end of the construction permit agenda. Item 16, County Board Report.
Thank you, Cody. Yep, you can go home now. Cody came in, he's sick, he came in just for this today, so.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Cody. County Board Report number 16, the Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendation from the August 26, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, any comments? No. Item 17, items from the public. Again, no one has joined us in the audience today, so item 18, items from staff.
Okay, item 18A is building permit report for August 2019 compared to last year. Overall down by 20%, but valuation is up. If you see the 101 CO, the single-family residences, it's 57 building permits so far this year compared to 52 last year, and almost $3 million in valuation higher. Valuation is also higher on residential additions and non-residential additions. So even though our numbers are down, the value of the work being done is going up. Or the perceived value, I should say.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, PJ, you
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
I noticed that periodically the Rapid City Journal covers the city building permits, and I never see any mention in those articles about the county building permits. And do you have a mechanism that you send these out to the Rapid City Journal, or do something so that they have that information so that they could include that? I just think it would make a more complete piece of information for the public readers if they had both city and county.
Yeah, I think ours are negligible compared to the amount that the city does, and maybe we're not of interest, but I can definitely reach out to the Journal. Right now, our main report is to the Census Bureau.
Is to what?
What?
The Census Bureau.
Oh, the Census Bureau, yeah. Well, I don't know, it just seems to me it would be, the numbers, of course, are maybe significant or insignificant, but I think that the message really is that of a growing community.
Sure.
and this gives, I mean, even though the numbers may be down a little bit, the value's up. So I mean, I just think it helps with the story. So,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
just a thought.
Yeah, we can take care of that for you. Report back on that as well.
Anything further? Item 18B.
Next item, 18B, is a comprehensive plan update. Matrix has finalized all the updates. We have two different versions, just like you had originally. The one that shows all the edits and then the clean version. And then there's also an updated comment matrix. It's going to go out to the public. We're going to advertise in a newspaper for about 4 to 6 weeks of public comment. I mean, it's been continuous over the years. And the board has chosen to have their first hearing of the comprehensive plan the morning of November 5th. It's a regularly scheduled meeting, but instead of starting at 9 o'clock, they're going to start at 8 o'clock. And that first hour is devoted to the comprehensive plan. It's going to be similar to the way the Planning Commission first had their meeting. Rick from Matrix will be here and kind of go over some things and give some direction after that.
But we are done with it, aren't we?
Unless it gets sent back down, yes.
I'm sorry, what?
Unless the board sends it back down, the Planning Commission as a whole is done with it, but you feel free to comment, show up at the meeting, send in your comments anytime you'd like.
So I missed part of that, but so that the revised version now, is that on the website now?
It's on the View to 2040
Yeah.
website. We haven't updated ours yet. We're going to coordinate with that when the
But it's viewed at
View to 2040.
2040
Correct.
website, okay.
And we will be getting you hard copies of all of it as well, so you have that, so
Okay.
you stay included the whole time. We're actually pricing out, which is a cheaper place to go get 35 copies of everything done. It's not cheap, but necessary.
Okay, anything else on this? Okay, on item 19, items from the membership. Anything? Oh, sorry, you had an item.
Yeah, there was a request to add one more item.
Okay,
October.
18C, all right.
Yep, item 18C, October 14th is Columbus Day. It is a holiday, but it is a holiday the county is open. And there is a planning commission meeting scheduled for that morning. So we will be here. Okay. Nothing further.
Okay. Items from the membership.
I have a couple things,
Okay.
Sonny. So first of all, I just wanted to, last time I raised some questions perhaps about these vacation home rentals and what's the situation in the city and so on. I just thought since I opened that can of worms, I'll just give a little update. PJ, thank you very much, got me some information. And then I subsequently talked to a few people at the city, and the upshot of it is that the city does not have any ordinances that address this now. And apparently there was an attempt or a beginning a couple of years ago, but then they got busy with other things, and so they've put that kind of on the back burner. And so I got a little different answer depending upon who I asked, but these Airbnbs or all this, they don't do anything about them unless there's some complaints, and then they address them under nuisance and different ordinances. But I got a little different story depending upon who was talking to me about that. But it is in their plan to deal with them within the next couple of years, is in craft some sort of an ordinance that, and they were interested. One person I talked to said they're quite interested in how the county does this, so that there can at least be some kind of relationship. Not necessarily they're going to be the same, but some relationship. And
If I could follow up on that, as I mentioned
please.
at the last meeting, Pennington County is probably the pioneer in VHR ordinances. That's what we were asked to give a presentation at the state conference last year on it. And we had a pretty good diverse representation in the room of people who don't have ordinances, but it's a big problem and they're trying to get a handle on it. So
Okay.
Is there a solution planned or a method to arrive at a solution?
right now, develop ordinances. I mean, we have the ordinance that we have and it can use some tweaking. But other counties and cities, they don't have anything. So they're
I
looking
see.
to develop something.
Yeah, what I was told was that they've got a tried and true way of developing new ordinances, and it would go through that process at the city, whatever that is, but it's the standard one. And so I have one other thing, if I may. I guess I just have two thoughts on, well, a question and a thought, and I know that there's this committee for bylaws, but I just thought I'd put it out here. Do you think that the new approach here to using the planning commission meetings as the public hearing for planning for these construction permits should be included in our bylaws? That it's a part of our meeting and therefore it should be mentioned in the bylaws? So that's just a thought that I'll put out there. And then more specifically, I'm not clear on, like in the construction permit number 13 and 14, there's no paragraph that says requesting public input. On 15, and there's a recommendation. On 15 and 16, there's a paragraph that said, this is a request, the staff is requesting public input on this request, and then it gives some information, and then there's just a proposed recommendation. And so it just would be helpful for me to understand when do you put that paragraph in with a proposed recommendation, and when that paragraph is not in there and it's just a recommendation.
So on 13 and 14, are you talking about the bold paragraph?
Yeah, like on 15, maybe I missed it, but on 15 and 16, right before the recommendation, there's that bold paragraph, and then the recommendation is a proposed recommendation.
I think it, excuse me, it appears in 14. And
Does appear in 14?
it does.
Okay, well,
But I don't
missed
believe it
Oh,
does
yeah.
in 13 and 14, because when it's an old conditional use permit, we keep them structurally sound the way they were originally created.
I see. Okay.
That's why sometimes you'll see staff reports, older ones that don't have Roman numerals or outlined the way the new ones are, because we
Okay.
keep the same thing.
So really, and because these Pete Lean ones was just a renewal or an extension, I had my numbers wrong. Yeah, it's 12 and 13 where it wasn't, and yeah, I had them mixed up. I see. Okay.
But I
so
can understand how you would see that, yeah.
Yeah, I was just a little mixed up on that, but that's what it is. These are the new ones, and therefore they follow this newer format.
Right.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office, with regarding your question as to the bylaws, I would recommend against any inclusion within the bylaws. The current procedure is based upon the fact that the planning director under our ordinance has the authority to decide construction permits. Placing these matters on the agenda is simply an opportunity for interested citizens to weigh in with any opinions. And ultimately, the planning director's decision may be appealed by statute to the Board of Adjustment, but this allows him to consider any objections to any proposed construction permit.
But you don't think it needs to be set in our bylaws because it's kind of an additional piece to our meeting structure?
No, first of all, the ordinances are subject to change. So that presents a difficulty. And specifically, we will be changing the procedure with regard to construction permits as we move forward in the amendment of our zoning ordinances. So something that is
Temporary or?
well, and subject to change depending on the zoning ordinance. I think the bylaws really are general operating procedures.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, anything further from membership? Seeing none, then we are at item 20 for adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
It's pretty painless.
We are adjourned.
I tell you,
Thank
this
you.
was a record.